Well, thanks for joining us once again. 8 o'clock here on this Friday evening, and it's kind of another dull weather pattern, unfortunately. Let's check that out very quickly. We were up into the 80s once again in this part of Texas, and you can see that southerly flow coming up from the Gulf. The moisture, though, is not all that high. We're seeing 60s dew points in the Houston and Austin area. In most other places, 40s and 50s. So that's kind of given us cool evenings. We start dropping off into the 60s a little bit after dark here. We do have a dry line set up. Let's check that out. And to find that dry line, we're looking at dew point values in the lower left. And when we have this bit of convergence here along that dry line, or in that wind field, and that little bit of pressure troughing in there, and the dew point gradients, that kind of gives us what we need to have a dry line present there. And if we had enough moisture, we would certainly be able to perhaps trigger a few showers and thunderstorms along that. Not today, though. Things are pretty quiet. And you can see that the source of the air behind the dry line is coming from the interior regions, this plateau region near El Paso today. Here's the weather picture from the Aqua and Terra satellites. This is the visible imagery, and it is showing things are starting to get a little bit busy out west. So you see some evidence of a storm system here. Now you notice that you can't really pick out too much detail. I mean, we do see some evidence of maybe a cyclonic pattern right there. But this is where infrared imagery can really help you. Let me switch over to that. So yeah, you see now embedded in that pattern we have this baroclinic structure here. And we didn't quite see that on the visible imagery there. That's because a lot of it's comprised of high cloud. And it kind of blends in with all the low cloud on visible imagery, but if we go to infrared, the high cloud stands out, and we can see the patterns that are originating from synoptic scale lift. So what this is telling us is that our baroclinic cloud pattern is kind of looking like this, and we're going to expect to find possibly a jet stream coming up the backside, maybe something like that. See this area of subsidence in here? There's a little bit of sinking motion. That's probably going to be back where the long wave trough is, somewhere out in this area here. And then the shortwave associated with the system is probably going to be somewhere in here. So that's going to be something to look for on the upper level charts. In fact, I guess we can go ahead and do that right now. Let me get this centered. And I'm going to switch this to the 6-hour forecast. Okay, so this is the 500 millibar chart. This is up at about 18,000 feet above sea level. So do you see any evidence of that weather system out over the Great Basin? Yeah, right there we see a little area of enhanced vorticity. And by vorticity, we're talking about rotation and shear in the wind flow. So it looks like most of this is probably, due to a combination of shear and curvature in here. And this is helping to emphasize the location of this disturbance in the wind field. See that right there? That's our shortwave trough. It's kind of small scale, kind of on the scale of maybe 300 or 400 feet. And with that, we're expecting to see upward motion ahead of that. And on the backside, downward motion or subsidence. And that's kind of what the satellite imagery shows. Kind of works out really well there. So you can kind of use all your tools and combine them and find where your features are. So you can also use the 500 millibar analysis, and it is pretty hard to find short waves with that alone. But you can still pick them out to a certain extent by going through the data. So there's the shortwave trough, and here we have a shortwave ridge, and back behind that we may even have another shortwave ridge embedded, in this field within this large-scale long-wave trough. So you see how that's all put together? Maybe a bit of a trough in here, maybe a bit of a trough here, little ridge in between. So there's all these small-scale disturbances, all these small-scale features that are embedded on the large-scale pattern. But if we're here in the central U.S., we're underneath this major ridge. Got a 589 decameter high over West Texas, so that's keeping things kind of on the warm side in this area. So we're not going to see it cool off here in Texas until we shift out of that pattern and start bringing some of the stronger flow eastward into the central U.S. And up to the north, you can see the polar vortex. We talked about that yesterday. I think I showed you how the bullseye pattern here kind of corresponded to the deepest, coolest cold air. So that's centered on northern Baffin Island, right there. So if something was able to displace that southward, we could certainly see a good Arctic outbreak into the U.S. But for whatever reason, we don't have a flow that is going to allow that to happen. So we're just going to kind of see that polar vortex just kind of move around. And usually when it's not being kicked southward, it tends to just kind of rotate like that, just kind of go around in circles. Maybe I can actually show that to you. Let me move through the charts. So you see, this is the forecast over the next couple weeks. And you see how that cold air mass just kind of rotates around and stays up north. So probably not much cold weather for here in our part of the U.S., but we will get a chunk of this next week. Okay, let's go back to our current analysis and see if there's anything else we want to show. Looks pretty quiet elsewhere across the country. Lots of clear skies out of the Appalachians, and looks like a little bit of a cold air advection pattern over New England. So this looks to me like possibly a bit of northwesterly flow coming out from the Great Lakes area. See if we can see that on the surface chart here. Yeah, there it is right there. So a bit of cold northwesterly flow. And this is the time of year when we do have lake effect showers and lake effect clouds. That usually starts going away by December and January as the lakes start cooling. But right now you can see that these northwesterly winds flow out over the lakes, they pick up moisture, and we start getting these cloud fields on the lee side. And some of those will have showers and either like sprinkles, or if it's cold enough, you'll have some flurries embedded in that. And it does look like it's coming off that area of snow here. Looks like there's been a little bit of snowfall there in the northern part of Ontario. Looks like it kind of dies out as you go further north. But anyway, so that's what's happening in the northeast. And that's probably about all I got there, so I guess I'll just go ahead and move forward into the forecast. Let me get the charts all set up here. So we'll start out with our picture for right now. This is showing a warm front over the Great Lakes and a bit of a cold front extending into the Midwest. And just offshore we can see a cold air mass sitting right off the coast. So that may start moving into the western U.S. over the next week or so. So moving forward past the weekend, looks like some more warming across the central U.S. We get into this warm advection pattern. Cyclogenesis over Montana and Saskatchewan. The cold air mass out over the west moves onshore a little bit, mostly affecting the Pacific Northwest right there. Then it looks like over the next week, that frontal system mostly moves through the Great Lakes area, doesn't go very far south. And then by, let's see, we're at Wednesday, maybe a little bit of a cold push southward into Oklahoma and Kansas. And yeah, that builds through most of the southern U.S. So we should get a little bit of a cool down next week, finally. Then after that, not much change to the pattern, really. Looks like it'll still stay pretty quiet. And one other chart we can look at very quickly is the we can look at the precipitable water, since we are getting back into a little bit of a warm pattern, unfortunately. So we can see if any moisture makes it up this way, because that would help trigger some thunderstorm activity, assuming we have enough convergence and upper level support. So moving forward, Sunday, and then Monday, this purple shows the deeper precipitable water, deeper and richer. And yeah, we're bringing some 1.5 inch values into Texas along the I-35 corridor. This is going to be around Tuesday or Wednesday. So I think we're going to see possibly some chances of thunderstorms around midweek. So we keep an eye on that, and we'll do some special coverage if that comes together. So probably one last chance for a squall line, maybe Thursday night, and then that clears out and we get this push of cool air over the weekend into the southeast and central U.S. And then after that, just kind of stagnant once again, looks like. Okay, that's about all I got for tonight. It looks like, well, I wish we had a more active weather pattern. This is really kind of dull, but, you know, I'm going to try to stick with it here. I appreciate you all watching, and I will see you guys tomorrow at the usual time. Thanks.